Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm making another video after a long time, and in this video I'm going to discuss about AWS Certified DevOps Engineer Professional Exam and the ways I use to clear it and how you can clear it. And also we're going to discuss some of the practice questions and the type of questions and the question pattern. So it's going to be a little different video if you compare the videos which I already have made about all the different certification exams. This one is going to be a little bit different, but let's begin. First of all, I would like to show you the resources I use for this exam. So I'll just keep my video at the bottom. Okay, so the first resource I used is this Stephen Marek course. I have used a lot of his course, and you guys also would have done a lot of his course if you are preparing for any AWS certification exam. And if you see, a lot of this course content is similar to what he teaches on the DVA, which is Developer Associate exam, or SOA, which is the SysOps Administrator exam. The reason is these exams are very similar to the DevOps Engineer Professional exam. The main difference is in this professional exam, because it's a higher level exam, you will see more complex architectures as compared to SOA or DVA. Okay, that's the only difference, but the concept and the topics remain the same. I would like to mention another thing that I would not recommend this exam to anyone who is like very new to AWS and this is their first certification exam. If you do not have experience with AWS technology or services, I don't think this exam could be much more beneficial for you. Even if you cleared this exam in the interview or anything, like they're gonna ask you questions which are related to maybe more complex architectures which you really need hands-on upon. So I will quickly shift my focus into this as well. You start preparing for any AWS certification exam, you go to the exam guide and you take a look at the sections and different things on the exam. For this exam, we usually have like 6 different sections, so it's a lot more content heavy exam. And if you can see, all of them are divided into 6 domains, which the most one, 22%, is from SDLC domain, which is software development automation, lifecycle automation. And then we have configuration management and IAC. We have resilient cloud solution. We have monitoring and logging. We have incident and event response. We have security and compliance. I think for any AWS certification exam, if you see these domain 4, 5, and 6, right, the services covered in these domain remain the same. So for example, monitor and logging, CloudWatch is involved with the monitor and logging service, right? With incident and event response, you have like Event Bridge, you have AWS config. For security and compliance, you have inspector, you have guard duty. So these are the services which pretty much remain the same for any AWS certification exam. It's not just this exam where the questions are going to be different or the services is going to be different. But for me, because I have a lot of experience with deploying services on AWS, these 3 domains were very easy to cover up. And because I don't use a lot of SDLC still in my day-to-day, this was the section which I was looking most forward to learn. And this first domain covers a lot of your CI/CD skills. It will cover the code deploy, code pipeline, and code deploy is one of the services which is the most important out of everything, because it basically integrates with a lot of AWS services. Apart from that, if you go to configuration management and IAC, the most important services are AWS SSM for configuration management and CloudFormation for IAC. Then we move to resilient cloud solution, where you will see a lot of architecture based questions, a lot of database questions, a lot of multi-AZ scenarios and disaster recovery scenarios. So it's really important to cover this as well, because this is 15% of your exam content. Then we have monitor and logging. Again, the most important services are for this is CloudWatch, and you can cover logs, alarm, and even CloudWatch agent in very detail. So please, you have to cover all of that with this domain. Then you have incident and event response, where I think the most important service is AWS config and how it integrates with other services. And you also have to learn about event bridge and how it can respond in to different services. Have a deeper knowledge in AWS health services, health related functions, because that is also where you will get a lot of scenario based questions. Then with the security and compliance, I think IAM, guard duty, AWS inspector, your WAF, your shield, and also in all of these domains, lot of AWS ALB, including NLB, gateway load balancer, all of that is very, very important. Services like Lambda, S3, and API gateway, and even CloudFront is really important, because without these services, these are kind of fundamental services to AWS, and without these services it's really difficult to design an exam or design a question. Every question is gonna cover some or the other of all these services which I mentioned. So for more details, you can go through this doc. This is available in AWS website, so I would not spend a lot of time in this. But let's move on to the practice exam I used. So I kind of use this, which is, I don't recommend to buy this practice exam unless you don't have a Udemy business subscription from your organization maybe. But if I move, this is Neil Davis practice exam. It has 6 practice tests, and every set has like 20 to 25 questions, which I believe you will be under prepared after doing these 130 questions. You need a lot more questions than this. You need a lot more complex questions on architecture based scenarios. So what I recommend is tutorial dojos practice exams. I forgot the link, but I'll put that link in the description. But those are the exams which are really very similar to the real exam. If you score like consistently above 75% in those practice exams, I think you can sit for the actual exam and you will pass it. So yeah, go with tutorial dojos practices question. Go with this Stephen Marak course. I think it's more than enough. It covers every little detail about every topic. So yeah, and what is really important in this is this third section, which is SDLC automation, because this is like 22% of your exam. Now moving on to another which AWS provides you for free is a sample exam questions. Okay, so these are the questions which you can see it's I think they are a little bit more difficult, because in exam the good thing is you will see these long questions. Okay, these long questions will be there in the exam, but there were a lot of short questions as well. Okay, so there were a lot of questions where maybe you had like only 4 options, and all of 4 options were very just one liner, and the question were also very small. I think you will still see like 10 to 15 questions which are very short for the exam. So when you go through the exam, try to cover up those questions first, and then mark these long questions for the end of the exam, and I think you get plenty of time to do your exam. If you have really practiced well with the tutorial dojo exam, I don't think you're gonna have a problem with the time management, but it's really important to practice before sitting in an actual exam. Without practice, it's going to be really difficult and hard to clear the actual exam. Let's move on to a fun part where I am gonna share a few of the practice questions. Now I have made these practice questions with the help of these questions which you see here, and a lot of practice questions over the web. And I have asked ChatGPT and other AI tools to change those questions so that I can obviously don't have plagiarism in this video. Okay, so here we go. Here is the first question. I'm just gonna hide myself and let's focus on the question here. So this question is from the first domain of the exam, which is SDLC automation. It covers 22% of the exam, and a question may look like this. I'll just give 1 minute for you to read this. You can pause this video and read the question. So I hope you have read the question, and now let's continue with the explanation. The question is very simple, that a company is deploying a containerized web application on ECS using code deploy with a blue-green strategy. And it says before directing live user requests to the new version, the company wants to run automated checks to confirm if application is behaving correctly. If these checks fail, the system would automatically roll back to the previous version. Now, which deployment lifecycle event an AppSec file should be used to run the validation logic? Now, what I would say that this AppSec file is really important for your exam. You may see questions like this in the exam. You need to know the flow chart of this, and I think that Stephen Marak course also covers it, and you can also watch some of the YouTube videos which can cover this one. So these are the 4 options here, and our answer to this is A, which is after allow test traffic. Okay, so we had answers after allow test traffic, after install, before allow traffic, and after allow traffic. So here, like Blue-Green deployments in ECS with code deploy uses lifecycle hook defined in appspec.yaml, and these hooks let you custom script often lambda function at specific stage. And this is specifically designed for validating the new application version with the test traffic before shifting real production users. Okay, and again, if validation fails, code deploy can automatically roll back to the previous, which is the green version here, without impacting real user. So basically, after allowing test traffic, a hook will be there which will validate the application version. So I hope this was simple enough. So now I'll move on to the next domain, which is configuration management and IAC, which is infrastructure as code. And here you can have a question something like this. Again, I'll give it 2 seconds. You can pause the screen and read the question. A DevOps team is deploying a containerized application on ECS with the Fargate launch type. Okay, the application requires sensitive data and database credential and API tokens to be injected as environmental variable. Now you need to know what environmental variable is first of all, right? Now our requirements are that the secret must be stored in the secured and dedicated service, automatic rotation, values may be larger than 10 KB. Which solution best meets these requirements? Right answer is AWS Secrets Manager, which is a purpose-built secret storage for database, password, API keys, etc. It supports automatic rotation, and it can store up to 64 KB. So it satisfies all the requirement which was mentioned on the question, right? Now, why we did not choose a system manager parameter store? Because it has a limit. Rotation is possible, but not as seamless as secret manager. You definitely need some other service, right? In secret manager, it's just automatic. You just enable it by default. We didn't select KMS because it's a key management service, not a secret manager. And we did not select a storage gateway, but because it is designed for other solution, it's not for the secrets. From next domain, which is domain 3, which is resilient cloud solution. This again covers 15% of your total exam. Now I already discussed that this domain covers a lot of multi-AZ failover, those scenarios. A company is migrating its customer portal to AWS. The application will run on Elastic Beanstalk, uses MySQL for multi-AZ. Now the deployment requirements are: application resource must be remain in full capacity during deployments. Deployment should launch a new group of instance rather than replacing the ones in place. Rollback should be easy and safe. Application performance must not be impacted. Should be cost effective. So there are a lot of requirements for this. Okay, and what I did for a lot of these type of questions, I use an elimination strategy. Okay, the first option, right, blue-green deployment. If you see, it says solution must be cost effective. No need to keep duplicate environment running after the deployment. So this option is not correct. Blue-green is not for that. B option is all at once deployment policy, right? And here it says that application resource must remain in the full capacity during deployment. So this does not work. C is rolling with additional batch. D is immutable. So see, I immediately eliminated A and B option right away, and I only got left with C and D, right? So you can use this kind of strategy to pursue for each and every question in your exam. The correct answer is immutable deployment. All the deployment policy, right? This is very important for your exam, is elastic beanstalk and the deployment policy. This is a DevOps exam. You need to know how deployment policies works. Okay, so all at once, rolling an additional batch. Why we use immutable? Because it creates a new auto scaling group with the new version. It ensures full capacity during deployments. If deployment fails, it has an option to roll back, and it's a simple option. It's more cost effective than blue green. You don't need to keep two full environment after success. This is how you solve a question. Let's move on to the domain 4 because I don't want this video to be very long. So it's monitor and logging, 15% of the question. And a question could be something like this. Now this question, if you see, it is based on metrics. If a question is related to metrics, it will be a monitoring section question, even though it is not directly a CloudWatch question, right? It is a solution based questions. It is a question for a food delivery service, right? It's an architectural question, but it still comes under monitor. I hope you have chosen your answer. The best answer here was A. Okay, so how do we determine this? That first we check the metrics, right? So in the metric, if you go back, you have approximately age of oldest message, you have write throttle events, you have number of messages sent, you have SQS throttle, right? These are your metrics. Now why we choose approximate age of oldest message? Because if you see, there is a queue which processes the order, right? And customer is reporting delays. It means there is something to be done with the approximate age of oldest message metric. Shows you how long the oldest message have been waiting in the queue. A growing value means a processing backlog, orders waiting to be processed. And then why we selected write throttle events? Because DynamoDB shows whether writes are being throttled due to insufficient capacity. Both metrics together pinpoint whether the delay is from processing backlog, XQS to Lambda, or write bottlenecks, which is DynamoDB. So that's why we chosen the first option. It says that if you see the backlog throttling, raise the Lambda concurrency event and increase the DynamoDB's maximum write capacity. So it's solving both the steps. So let's move on to the fifth domain, which is incident and event response, which is 14% of score content. And here is your question. I hope you have paused and read the question. It's a global bank. It must audit every API call. They will use CloudTrade to capture API, and security team must ensure the CloudTrade cannot be disabled. Okay, so what is the following approach best meets the goal? It's A again. Okay, so A is use the CloudTrade enabled AWS config manage rule, set to evaluate on configuration changes, configure the manage rule to automatically remediate the account where CloudTrade has been turned off. Why we did not choose B, C, or D? If we choose 1 hour period plus Lambda, it means that 1 hour will be lost. That 1 hour of log data will be lost, right? We don't want that. Second is CDK plus SNS alerts. It does not automatically restore logging. It alerts, but it does not restore. Okay. The D, Lambda every minute to recreate trails. It just adds a lot of operational complexity. Recreating tails may not preserve all original settings, and it can cause more problems than a manage remediate that simply restarts logging. And AWS config is one of the services, again very important for this section. You'll see a lot of questions on AWS config. Let's move on to domain 6, which is security and compliance. Again, very important for cloud services. 17% of the total exam. Here, a company manages a fleet of EC2 that developers securely access via SSH. When engineer leaves the company, SSH keys are rotated as part of offboarding process. The CIO now wants to eliminate the use of EC2 and SSH, EC2 key pair and SSH, all access through SSM session manager, and it should only work on a private network, not public internet. Which two actions out of this should a DevOps engineer take to meet these requirements? The right answer for this is A and E, which is attach an IAM instance policy with necessary system manager permission to EC2 instance and a VPC endpoint so that you can directly access this SSM service in the targeted region. The other ones are not correct, because if you enable SSH port 22, it contradicts the requirement to stop using SSH. If you use a bastion host, it's unnecessary because session manager removes the need of SSH or bastions. If you open outbound port 22, it's just not relevant, because session manager uses HTTPS, not SSH. So these are the kind of questions which you will see on the exam. So these are the questions which you will see on your exam, and I would recommend again the same thing, that you would see a lot of questions which very short, which does not have a lot of content. I'll first, when you go through the exam questions, because you can always come back to those exam questions, you can mark the questions and move ahead to the next question, right? So what I'll recommend, that you do those easy questions first, okay, and mark the hard questions for the later review. And once you are rotated throughout the exam questions, then you again come back to those questions which you have marked. Okay, really important to do, for especially for this AWS exam, because some questions may really be very complex. Okay, and one more tip, that usually in AWS exam 10 to 15 questions are unscored, okay, which does not affect your score. If you see a question which has some very latest services, or a question which you seem like that you did not read the service during your preparation, right, majority the chances are that that question is an unscored question. Okay, this is a slight tip which may help you to identify that unscored question, although you cannot, you really don't know which one is unscored, but just in case, it may help you a little bit on your exam. So that's it from my end. I would not take you much of your time, and I'll be back with a new video soon. Okay, till then, take care and have a good day, and all the best wishes for your exam. Thank you. Bye.